We're back on the early edge, and it's time to attack the prop market with Larry Hartstein, Danny Brasco, and Mike McClure, who joins the party. Let's get started with some passing props. And what I love about these is obviously we don't discuss these plays beforehand, but Mike, your and my prop correlate with each other. And Larry, you and Danny have props that correlate with each other as well. So Mike, kick us off here with a Matthew Stafford under.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford under on attempts here. See, under 33.5, 34. There are many scenarios that he doesn't touch this number. The games where I think he does is ones where they're really, really competitive and potentially even trailing at any point. But the fact is that's probably not where they're going to be tonight. I think we get a more conservative running approach. I also think there's a scenario where some of the play calling could be limited in terms of throwing the football tonight. I know that they do have a little bit to play for, but not a lot to play for. They are still guaranteed to play a road playoff game, locked into that wild card round, no matter what happens the rest of the way. Considering the fact that Davante Adams already beat up, Puka Nacua has been in and out of the blue tent very, very frequently. This is a spot where historically Sean McVay has opted to be a little more conservative and just flat out rest players to begin with. So I think we could see some running between the 20s, maybe still let Stafford throw a touchdown pass or two for that MVP race, but under on the pass attempts here at 33.5.
Yeah, I agree with this sentiment in large part. I think Matthew Stafford's going to play all four quarters unless this is a blowout. But I also agree with you, Mike, that we're going to see a lot of running, particularly between the 20s. As far as the MVP race is concerned, I totally agree. He's going to fling some touchdown passes. And when they get close, they're going to be more inclined, like they all usually are, to pass the ball. I'm taking Matthew Stafford's under 274.5 passing yards. I think this is just way too high. We know Matthew Stafford can do it, but I think we're going to see a lot of Blake Corum and Kyren Williams. Stafford will get his touchdown passes, and he'll probably get in that 250 range from a yardage standpoint. 274.5 is just way too much for me. Larry, let's go to you. You've got a Kirk Cousins prop.
Yeah, over 32.5 pass attempts. The opponents of the Rams are throwing the ball nearly 70% of the time the last 3 weeks because they do have a top 10 run defense, and they usually get off to a lead, and you have to throw. And this game sees the Falcons suiting up as more than touchdown underdogs, and Kirk is playing good football right now. He's going to cost $57.5 million against the cap next year unless the Falcons release him. It'll be interesting to see where he is next year, but this is an all-in, all-out game for the Falcons, for Raheem Morris trying to save his job, and I think Kirk Cousins will go down swinging.
Larry says he'll go down swinging, Danny Brasco. You agree? Oh, Danny did agree, by the way. He likes his over 32.5 pass attempts. Kirk Cousins is his pick, over 32.5 pass attempts. And Larry, again, that correlates with your play quite a bit. And I think, again, when you try to attack the Rams, you try to attack them through the air as opposed to through the run. And in a trailing game script, it's very likely Kirk Cousins is chucking it around to the likes of Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and obviously the others. Darnell Mooney might get involved as well. So let's go to our rushing props, and we're going to go to Mike. Let's go to you because you like Blake Corum. I like Blake Corum. Talk to me about his over rushing yards, 44.5.
Yes, yeah, look, I like both running backs for the Los Angeles Rams tonight, to be honest with you. I'll look at Blake Corum with the number being lower. I would make the case that in this kind of a game at this point in the season, that we're going to see very close to a 50-50 timeshare between both backs. I expect close to 30 rushing attempts tonight from the Los Angeles Rams. I think that when you look at where Atlanta will be more vulnerable, I think it'll be on the ground. Atlanta actually has been relatively stout in the passing game. I would expect that to hold up and be true when you're talking about a team like the Rams not having Davante Adams out there on the field. And again, just maybe a more conservative approach at times, knowing that they're locked into, playing a road playoff game. So I like rushing attempts. I like yardage here, but I really think it's Corum's number should be closer to 50.
Larry, I mean, again, you and Mike and really everybody, including Danny, seem to be in sync here because Mike just suggested we're going to see a lot of rushing attempts. I agree, you agree, but instead of taking Blake, you're taking Kyren.
Yeah, Kyron Williams over in the low 60s, got it at 60.5, would still play it up to 63.5, maybe even 64.5. He's gotten 70 or more in 4 straight and 7 of the last 8, and he was running into a brick wall last week against Seattle, the #1 run defense. Well, this is a light Atlanta front. They're going to go with those jumbo formations. They love to trot out those 3 tight ends and run the ball, and I agree with Corum, too. I think he's going to get 50-plus yards. I think Kyron's going to get 70-plus yards, and it's a Rams run-heavy script.
Yeah, I think it's a Rams run-heavy script. Not so much for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to take Bijan Robinson under 17.5 rushing attempts at -130. Check out BetMGM because they have this at 17.5, where a lot of other books have it at 16.5. Obviously, like the 17 a lot better. I think Bijan is absolutely going to get a ton of touches, maybe through the receiving game, but also through the rushing game. But I also think with this game script and the fact that this game doesn't matter a ton for Atlanta, certainly it matters for Raheem Morris and Kirk Cousins, but I think you'll see a little bit more Tyler Algier than you will in most games. I think we see Bijan Robinson get to maybe 15, 16 carries. I don't think he gets to 18. Give me the under 17.5 rush attempts. Let's go to receiving props. Mike, I'll start with you.
Let's talk about Darnell Mooney. Look, this is a guy that has really not had much of a role here in this offense. Obviously, quarterback changing has played a role, but when you've got a guy like Bijan Robinson, the talent in Kyle Pitts starting to emerge, and then Drake London, he's very clearly going to be a 4th option at best, and his longest reception number has now fallen to the 15.5 range. This is a guy who would routinely have this number at 19.5 or 20.5. Considering the likely negative game script and all the additional attention, we know that a team like the Rams is very good at focusing on receiving running backs, likely because they have to defend Christian McCaffrey so often in division. So I think that attention goes to Bijan. I'm looking for one longer catch here. Going to go over 15.5 longest reception.
Larry, I'm going to go to your receiving prop, and Danny Brasco did have to go, but I will mention that he likes Kyle Pitts over 4.5 receptions. It's pretty juicy at -148. You also like Kyle Pitts.
I like Kyle Pitts over 54.5 receiving yards. This one is just too low for a guy that has 39 targets in the last 4 weeks, almost 400 receiving yards, has cleared this in 4 straight. And yes, Drake London will be back. He is back. He came back last week, but he wasn't the same. He played fewer than 70% of the snaps. He only caught 3 passes. Kyle Pitts, just on volume alone in a trailing game script, should get there. And I really love Mike's plays too. I just hope Darnell Mooney catches it because he's definitely a speed merchant, and definitely there will be some deep targets.
A negative correlation candidate. We talked about it on the Early Edge Morning Show on the SportsLine YouTube channel. I like Darnell Mooney under 2.5 receptions. Over, I can alt line it over 40 plus, maybe 25 plus yards and an anytime touchdown. That'll play out really, really well. Just throwing that out there as a sprinkle play. You guys aren't going to like this. I'm going to take as my receiving prop Puka Nakua's under. BetMGM has the highest number you can find. It's at 110.5. At a certain point on a principle, I have to take the under here. I understand he is the only option. I understand from a coverage standpoint, it looks really good for Puka Nacua. 110.5 is too much. I'm going to lean on the fact that maybe the Rams will be leaning on the run a little bit more. I think Puka gets to maybe 90, 95. Again, 110.5 is kind of ridiculous. It's time to take the under. It's also time to discuss first touchdown scores. Speaking of sprinkle plays, these aren't full unit or half unit or even quarter unit plays. These are sprinkle plays. We have fun with first touchdown scores. And Larry, I'm going to let you have the first crack at it.
Well, Kyle Pitts at 1,400 is a pretty good price, in my opinion, for a guy who scored 4 times in the past 2 weeks. The Rams did give up a touchdown to the tight end, A.J. Barner, in their last game against Seattle. And just with the way that Drake London, not sure he's back to being Drake London, Kirk Cousins is going to continue to look to Kyle Pitts when they get down there.
Yeah, I mean, if they score first, to me, it's Bijan or Kyle Pitts. I understand there's other suitors there. But, Mike, who do you like?
You know, I like the Rams to score first. The running backs, obviously, the low-hanging fruits. How about Terrence Ferguson, though? Got in the end zone last week. When you look at this Rams offense, if they're not able to run it in, I mean, when they get down there, part of the reason why Stafford's winning the MVP this year is because he had Devontae Adams in the red zone, and it's like a cheat code. Well, he's not on the field here. They're going to bring in the additional tight end, going to look at some play action potentially. Terrence Ferguson's a guy that finds that little soft spot in the back of the end zone, plus 1,600.
Yeah, he's the tight end of the 3 that is the field stretcher. I mean, if you're going to call a tight end a field stretcher, it's Terrence Ferguson. You got Davis Allen, who doesn't catch a lot. And then you got Colby Parkinson. So I like your Terrence Ferguson play, Mike. Colby Parkinson, everybody was in on him. Larry, we talked about it on the early edge this morning, last week, but he really had a bad game. I think he's due for a bounce back. I think he's a solid tight end, and he's 10-1 to be your first touchdown scorer. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's the second read in the red zone with Matthew Stafford back to pass, obviously Puka being the first. But I think Colby makes up for a couple of really bad dropped passes last week. Again, 10-1 on Colby Parkinson first touchdown. All right, gentlemen, we still have to talk about who's going to cover the spread. A lot of different motivations for this game that we discussed. We got to talk about totals as well, maybe some first half bets. That's coming up next on the early edge. How about some sides, totals, and first half and team total bets here on the early edge on CBS Sports Network? Danny Brasco, you're back with us, and you're going to kick things off. We've got a 7-point spread here. And oh, by the way, I think you have a first touchdown play you might want to give out as well, just to troll Larry and I with our tight end plays. Talk to me about the Rams -7, but if you'd like, talk to me about Davis Allen.
Yeah, what a shame that I got cut off because I had a troll job for you guys. I saw the Terrence Ferguson pick. I saw the Colby Parkinson pick. So obviously I got to get Davis Allen in there at plus 1,800. But more importantly, the Rams are -7 tonight. And I lean their way, Sia, but I see the market respecting the Falcons. And I think for good reason. This line has moved from 8.5 to 7, slightly into the Rams, but it's kind of hard to speculate the level of motivation they'll be playing with. What is Sean McVay going to want to do depending on how this game goes? How is he going to look to rest guys? Is he going to have Stafford pushing for the MVP, which he's currently the favorite of right now? And ultimately, I think that's going to potentially lead to a spot where the Falcons have a chance to backdoor cover. I just can't get away from this, this Rams offense indoors. I think they can hang a number that maybe the Falcons can't keep up with. I just worry about that 7. I saw 7 in the hook, which I thought was compelling for Falcons bettors. I do think it could stay closer than expected based on, kind of how people rate these teams. Falcons get good pressure. The Rams are down a couple linemen tonight, and I think they could make it a kind of tricky contest for them. So lean Rams, but staying away ultimately.
Yeah, to be clear, it is 7 at some major books, and it's 7.5 at other major books. So, I mean, you could absolutely take the 7.5, shop that around. That's going to be easy to grab. I lean to the -7 as well, and I just listen. It's a primetime game, so there's going to be no give up on the Falcon side, even though they don't have anything to play for. I do think the Rams still have something to play for, obviously. And I also think they have a bad taste in their mouth from their last primetime game against Seattle. So I think they're going to come out pretty angry, and they're going to want to put it on a Kirk Cousins-led team where I think Kirk against this defense, I think we might see some of the issues that Kirk Cousins presents at this point in his career. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see some short fields for the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to lay the 7 points as well. But Larry, you're going to take the 7.5. Again, you can find the 7.5 very easily. You like the Falcons here.
Well, this was 8.5, and the market has just been steady on the Falcons, especially with the results that mean the Rams cannot win the division. They're going to be a wild card. They're going to be traveling, and it's just unclear. There's so much uncertainty about how Sean McVay is going to play it. I think we're likely to see some of the questionable guys not suit up, but I think the rest of the guys will be a regular go. And, Raheem Morris was the Rams defensive coordinator. This guy knows the Rams system. He's also coaching for his job. The Falcons have won a couple of games in a row. They've been feisty. I just think they're good enough to lose like 31-24.
Raheem Morris being the DC, I actually think is an advantage for Sean McVay rather than Raheem Morris, but we could debate that for a little while. Mike McClure, you agree with Larry?
Yeah, I do. And, when I first looked at the week, almost a week ago, when I ran my numbers, I made the game a lot closer to 9.5. I would go the other way, though, now at this point. Falcons plus 7.5. As Larry mentioned, you were able to catch 8.5 for a bit. I think the number should just be right at the 7, considering all the circumstances. I think there's a lot of unknown on the side of the Rams personally, only because Sean McVay in the past has been very quick to essentially rest and try to guarantee health. And I think they could be more conscious of that when you talk about not having Devontae Adams already out there. And if anything were to happen to Puka Nacua, this team goes downhill very, very quickly. So I just think it's a more conservative approach, right? I don't think the guys are going to go outright sit. Like, they prepared for this game as if it were a game that really mattered. I think they go out there. I think it's just simply more of a conservative effort on as far as play calling. And I think that this game could be competitive. The Falcons have a ton to play for individually where it matters. When you're talking about quarterback, you're talking about coaching staff. They will absolutely be trying to win this game. So I would play the Falcons against the spread.
All right, let's talk about a total. And Danny, I'm going to go back to you. The total pretty much everywhere is in that 49.5 range. What do you like?
I lean towards the over. I'm just not going to get in front of an under in an indoor, environment with these kinds of offenses on the field. It looks like Drake London might suit up based on what Raheem Morris is saying. He said he feels like he's got a great chance to play tonight. So that certainly helps for scoring points. And we know this Rams defense, the pass rush has been fantastic, the run defense, but they actually rank bottom 10 in explosive pass plays allowed. So I think if the Falcons get in a trailing game script, you could see Kirk Cousins slinging the rock out there, Falcons scoring enough points to get over this total. I could see maybe a 27-23 kind of game that gets over by a hook.
Larry, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the Rams offense has been unstoppable, put up nearly 600 yards of offense at Seattle. I mean, a much better defense than this, averaging over 7 yards a play. And the Falcons have done a nice job offensively with Kirk Cousins, Bijan, and Kyle Pitts the last few weeks. And I agree with Mike. It's an all-in spot for the Falcons, probably their last chance to show something, to the nation and for Raheem Morris. So I like it 31-24 Rams.
All right, I'm going to take a first half under 24.5. I think anytime you get to 24.5, you got to consider the under. And I also think, based on what we talked about earlier with the props, I do think both teams, especially early when the game is close, lean on the running game. That running game might be effective, but if I'm taking under 24.5, I'm really just looking for a punt or two in the first half and a couple of those drives that usually end in touchdowns, ending in field goals. I'll note that Atlanta Falcons red zone plus territory defense was pretty good last week against the Cardinals. And, without Devontae Adams, we could see maybe the Rams deferring to their field goal kicker on a couple of drives. We'll go under 24.5. Mike, you like the first quarter over?
I do, yeah. I wonder if anyone reading the rundown wondered if Mike made a mistake today. Like, did he actually mean over? Because I bet the under in the first quarter so often. But it is, in fact, correct. I'm going to go over 9.5 in the opening quarter here. I think we get a touchdown and a field goal. Look, it's just late season, and you're playing in a dome and controlled environment and great conditions. We know how good the Rams offense is. I think that you're going to see a good offensive effort, though, from the Atlanta Falcons tonight. And I think it's going to start early with that scripted drive at full strength. Very easy to get the field goal in these conditions. Go over 9.5 in the first quarter.
And what's interesting too, Mike, is that this next bet, team total or first half bet, you and Larry agree. And Larry, I feel like the Falcons team total over 20.5 kind of lends itself to Mike's play, the over 9.5 first quarter coming in as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons have put up 29 and 26 the past 2 weeks, and they also had some red zone struggles against Arizona. That could have been in the 30s, and we saw the Rams defense show some vulnerability against Seattle and give up a ton there. So I just think the Falcons at home with all of their weapons in perfect conditions are going to get in the 20s over 20.5.
Mike, I know you agree. I assume you don't have much to add to that over 20.5 for the Falcons.
Yeah, not a ton. Just they've been vulnerable defensively. They also gave up 28 against the Carolina Panthers. The Detroit game, obviously. Detroit's a high-flying offense, but still gave up a ton of points in that one as well. So, yeah, I think they land between 21 and 27.
All right, I'm going to go with the Rams first half minus 3.5. Again, I just think especially early, the Rams are going to come out pretty strong. Obviously, all starters, I think all starters will be playing probably through the game, but certainly through the first half. And again, I think this Falcons team might be looking okay after their last two games, but the opponents aren't the Los Angeles Rams. I think the Rams are winning by 4 or more by halftime.